Hello everybody, thanks for having me. So I was supposed to come up with an inspirational story. Well, it is quite tough to have to give an inspirational speech. I would like to talk from my very own personal experience, from my point of view, and I was told, or I was shared the information, yes, something inspirational, something about success, what success means, how to get successful. Maybe at the end of the story we get to what I consider to be success or success. I used to have a vision of a very long time ago when I was deciding what kind of university to study. Right? That was a tough decision for me. I went to some psychological assessments where they have tested me to tell me what would be the appropriate university to go to study. What I have found out was that this lady, apparently a very skilled psychologist, she told me, well, whatever you decide, you can do that. Okay, thank you very much. And then she had some piece of advice. She told me, but you know what, you have quite good mathematical talent, however, very underdeveloped. Okay, it remained underdeveloped, my mathematical talent. So I was more interested at the time when I was at high school, like studying philosophical books. I was like, yes, philosophy, that's the way. Then my parents were like, Robo, are you sure? Philosophy, what are you going to be? Work as a philosopher? We don't want to have you living in our house until you are like 30, 40. Choose something different. Well, I was accepted to philosophy here in Bratislava, but I said, okay, maybe to make my parents happy, let's go for psychology. It could be somehow more useful. So I started studying psychology. And at that time I built up my vision or my dream. And I don't know how you are thinking about setting up your own goals. I took a long-term approach, maybe because of my origin. I'm half German, half Slovak, so maybe the German way was like, okay, let's work somehow longer to get successful. So I defined my success as having an office, psychotherapeutical office somewhere in Bratislava on the hill. I was thinking like Slavin and looking down by the age of 40. So that was my vision. However, well, during university I thought, okay, so mental illness and stuff like that, let's get into that. I was studying that, I'm certified hypnotherapist, so if you fall asleep during my 30-minute speech, it's going to be my hypnotherapeutic skills, not the boring speech that I'm having. So I was really like interested. However, I got some practice where I was going to Pezinok, where we have this very interesting psychiatry hospital. And I found out no mental illness, nothing to do with me and my future and my success. Let's focus rather on business. You know, I was quite lost at university, so yes, business. After graduating, I went into business. I started to work as a headhunter for an Austrian company here in Bratislava. And I thought, okay, this is going to be my success. I'm going to be a headhunter, I'm going to make money, I'm going to have a status and everything connected to that. Well, it was the year 2009, after just spending like 7 months in this headhunting industry, our company got bankrupt and I got basically laid off. I'm like, okay, so headhunting business I did not get successful in. So maybe look back at this psychology I have studied. Well, what can we do with that? And there was a chance to start working as a prison psychologist. It was like my old friend who had called me to the prison system. Before I was telling him, no way, I'm not going there, I will be headhunter. Like 7 months later, I was like, okay, good, so let's give it a chance. So I relocated from Bratislava, where I was born and living all my life, to Banská Bystrica, where I was renting a small apartment just opposite of the prison, so I heard the dogs barking all night long. Started to work as a psychologist in a prison. And that was a huge clash when what my life has been before clashed with reality, like alternative reality. Like, I see you here, nice, modern, educated, I can say wealthy people. and I considered myself to be part of that group. Suddenly I was thrown into an environment where I was on a daily basis talking to drug addicts, alcohol addicts, prostitutes, robbers, murderers, thieves, the concentrated evil all around there. And not only concentrated evil, concentrated terrible smell all around there. Because these anti-smoking rules, they obviously do not apply in prisons. So these guys like to smoke and have no money to buy cigarettes, so they smoke whatever they find. It was quite interesting. And yes, I found out that there are other problems in life that compared to getting successful and making money. And there are huge problems that these people are suffering. Mental illnesses. Some of these people, they are primed like the moment they are born in their environment. They are kind of predestined to enter this path. Going through this prisons for minors, prison, out of prison, steal something, back to prison, etc., etc., etc. People suffering depressions. Everyday people coming to you that want to kill themselves. Then it is people killing themselves, people eating forks and spoons just to get out of there somehow to a hospital, because in the hospital you can have better access to cigarettes, for example. Incredible madness. And then I start to think, okay, well, let's set aside my vision to get successful. Maybe I could start helping these people, which was my job actually. It took me a while until I started to think this way. And how to help them? Well, I started to introduce small things, small programs for these prisoners. And somehow I got spotted by the big guys sitting in Bratislava, the big bananas at the headquarters, and said, okay, this young guy seems to have a vision, seems to be willing to invest energy and change the system, not just work from 7 to 3 as it was set up there. Enjoy state service money for not doing anything. So they have called me to the headquarters to become the chief psychologist for the Slovak prison system, which meant leading more than 70 prison psychologists all around Slovakia in 18 prisons that we have. Small country, 18 prisons, that's crazy. So again, I started to build up my vision, success story. Yes, this young guy. So because I was competing for that position with people who had like 30 years of practice, I had like 3 or 4 at that time. And I mean, I got that position. So I felt like, good, now I need to fulfill my potential. Let's do something about it. So I joined all the groups that were available like throughout Europe, had a vision, because in the law it is stated when somebody is convicted criminal, the task of the prison system is not only to keep the general society safe, just to exclude this person out of society, but there is another task for the prison system to try to remove the subjective reasons for committing crime. And that is the work of a psychologist, of a pedagogue, and of all these supporting personnel. So my vision was to define or build up programs for these people, how they can improve, how they can learn something, how they can unlearn the bad behaviors that they have learned maybe in the past, in their childhood. So we started working with high-risk criminals. We started working to de-radicalize, and at that time it was like de-radicalization was not even like around here. And we, most of all, where I invested my energy, we started to work with this like small minor group, which is perpetrators of domestic violence, like, men that have beaten their wives. Right? And when we are talking like domestic violence, like what do you picture? It's like a man gets drunk and slaps the woman, right? Well, yes and no. Like there were people attending our program who, for example, a man found out that his wife was cheating on him, so he got drunk in the local bar. He beat up his like the other guy who was cheating with his wife. Then he got home. His wife was sleeping, so he set her on fire, locked her in the bedroom, sat in the kitchen, drank a couple of shots, well, then he unlocked her because she was screaming so loud that he couldn't stand it. Like these kind of people were attending the program. Incredible madness. You would never believe that these things are really happening. So that is where I have invested a lot of energy. However, my time at the headquarters of the prison system came to an end when like political changes, which now feels like political stability. I mean, they came, and suddenly I felt some kind of discontinuity. Like we had many things going the right way, like this, what they call like, oh, we were doing like this humanization of the prison system. They found out, they were thinking like, no, we should not go that way. We should just lock these guys up and beat them up, and that's it, make them suffer. So that was the time when I realized, all right, again, my vision has clashed. Again, I'm not going to be successful in reaching my goals. I'm not going to change the system from the inside. So, back to business. So I exited the prison system and got self-employed, started to provide soft skills trainings, leadership trainings for employees of shared services centers. My first training in 2013 was with IBMers, negotiation skills. And I mean, I had some negotiation experience because in the prison I was working as a negotiator, which was not negotiating business for the state, but negotiating in extreme cases like hostage takings and stuff. So I don't know if it helped the IBMers, but I mean, somehow set me on the track. And ever since I was working for a company which is called Human Capital, small Slovak private-owned company, where we provide soft skills trainings and leadership development trainings to shared services here around Bratislava, like you guys, I don't know, Swiss Re, Deutsche Telekom, Johnson Controls, this type of companies. And I thought maybe I'm gonna get successful and rich. Finally, this is the way, like business, forget about psychology, it's all about business. So I mean, doing all these things, being quite passionate about it. Then suddenly I got a chance to improve the prison system again. I was approached by one NGO who were actually dealing with these perpetrators of domestic violence, or they were rather helping out these women, these victims, and they needed somebody to help these men. So I went for a training to Germany for 1 year, got trained, certified, came back, writing hundreds of pages of analysis for our different ministries, Ministry of Justice, Social Affairs and stuff, to change the system, to help out, to protect the victims of domestic violence through also working with the men, with the perpetrators, with a program which takes like 1 year, has certain conditions and stuff. So I went for the big thing, like change the justice system, which did not happen, of course, in the end, because these guys from the Slovak ministries, they are still asking me to keep on writing this 100 pages of different analysis, but I'm saying, like, no, not anymore. We need to do something about it. So with this NGO, we launched programs where we now from the outside have entered the prison system to help, because the people who are paid for doing so are not doing it. So let's invest European money for an NGO to do their job. So I got involved in that, running these group sessions with the perpetrators, running group sessions, trainings in the business, and something was missing. I felt like there was this idea to help people. I still had the feeling, yes, I'm doing things for groups of people, but still not helping people, helping individuals improve, grow. So I decided to somehow mix it up and combine. So I have set up my own small business where now I provide counseling, trainings, coachings, psychological counseling to both groups of people, to business people and to people from the outside, individual people. So it happens that like last week, one day, there was first this one married couple who came to me, which is a former perpetrator of violence, with whom I was then individually working for a year. Now I'm working with him and his wife. They want to restore the relationship, to make it all good again. So we were talking about this hard stuff, private hard stuff. When they left, there was some other guy coming, which is a very clever person who is going now for coaching sessions where he has coached himself out of his company now starting a new job, having an international assignment, taking on his first leadership role. So this is what I enjoy currently or presently, to try to help people very individually, help people on with private issues, personal issues, with work-related professional issues, and to close the loop of, I had this vision when I was studying at university that I will have this office on the hill in Bratislava by the age of 40. Well, I'm not 40 yet. I do not have that office on the hill, but actually today I have just signed, I have rented a new office, which is called, the address is na vršku, which means on the hill. so that's where the loop closes. That is where I provide my individual services, and that is also the address where Human Capital, the company I provide the trainings for the business world, for the corporate world, they reside there as well on the very same address on the hill 8 in Bratislava. So this is what I do. This is what I wanted to share, and what is success, coming back to that. Now thinking back, I think I spent a lot of time wanting to get successful and do these big things, big changes, change the world. But then somehow, day by day, I started to feel successful. And the feeling of success, for me, it mainly is the ability to help people, to see very small, tangible results and small steps of improvement that people are taking, that people are overtaking ownership for their own life, thinking about the decisions that they are making, trying to be better. For me, this is success, and I'm really passionate about that. That's it. And I would be more interested in discussing with you. But I don't know what could be some questions. Yes.
I would be interested, what was that you have been doing in Banska Bystrica that got the attention of Robert Vavro?
Yeah, some innovations, probably. Innovations and stepping out of the comfort zone and challenging authorities. Probably I somehow always felt like a troublemaker. And maybe that is this cultural aspect as well, this German thing to be very straightforward and open in providing feedback and coming up with ideas. So I was considered to be a troublemaker at high school, at university, and somehow it turned into an advantage instead of a disadvantage in a system which was very persecutive, and I did not expect, but I just behaved the natural way, doing things differently, different things, basically that. Starting these small programs, small innovations, investing my leisure time to do something for other people, which is like really not seen in the state service too often. Yes, please.
How can you handle, you are trying to help people, okay, but they have a lot of problems, a lot of different problems. How can you be like side to don't affect you personally, those kind of issues? So I think this is a challenge somehow.
And so do I understand correctly, like, yes, dealing with problems of other people, make it not affect you? Well, yes. This is difficult, and I don't want to say I have made it. But there are different ways how to deal with that. And some of my former colleagues think alcohol is a good solution.
Stealing everything.
Which obviously isn't. I don't know, this burnout, this is where I, like, for the first time experienced what burnout is, a different type of burnout that you might be facing. When I was asking my boss, actually, who was doing the job for more than 25 years, and I was like, Martin, I was asking him, how can you do it for such a long time, and you were quite okay, right? And he was like, yeah, Robo, you know, I had a crisis in the past. Like, yes, because I was having a crisis. And I asked him, okay, so what did you do about it? Well, you know, after like 5 years, somehow stabilized again. Okay, so time can heal. And then it is humor, which is not nice for outsiders. It's like, I don't know if you know, like people from like working in hospitals, doctors and stuff, like they are really surgeons. They are really cruel, right? They are really just like they are assholes, basically. Yes, what they talk about the patients, it's not very professional. And that is how we were talking about the inmates having lunch. That guy cut his veins again. The third time this month. Almost died. Blood was all over the place. And I don't know if that helps. It felt quite cruel to me, actually.
Time and humor.
It is difficult, and it is what is missing. Like this, like seriously now, like these people who work in this type of jobs, they would need some treatment. They receive no treatment, and plus in the prison system is this military system with ranks and stuff like that, where the psychologists are there also for the staff, but nobody ever officially comes to you, because it would mean for them that maybe they would be set aside of service and their guns would be taken and they love their guns and stuff. So they tell nobody. They tell you in the sauna, in the bar, when you play football, but they never officially approach you. That piece is missing, and it is missing in the corporate world as well, I think. Yeah. Hugely missing.
During your work with the patients in the prison, did you stumble upon a lot of psychopaths or sociopaths? And do you think they're also not just in the prison, but on the streets as well?
No, I don't know.
Corporate, for example.
This is important, so maybe now, so maybe I'll be wrong now, but I was reading some statistics. And the statistic says that in the prison, like 70% of the inmates are actually psychopaths or sociopaths. So there is some statistic that says that in the corporate world, in managerial positions, 70% of them are psychopaths. I don't know if we can trust the numbers. But you know, it is normal, because it is not a mental illness. It is just a disorder, let's say. And these people are everywhere around.
Yes.
So you never know to whom you are talking to.
Well,
or when you meet someone.
One of my colleagues has a good diagnostic method. He says that if you start talking to a stranger, and after 5 minutes this person is driving you crazy and pissing you off, it is a psychopath. No.
Do you have your own method how to
You look and see somehow what are some typical traits, and there are different pictures of this disorder. It can be typically people who do not have highly perfected sense of empathy towards others. Selfish people, in other words. They many times are psychopaths, sociopaths.
But still many of them can just
manipulative people. And they can hide, they are manipulators, great manipulators. Yes. Manipulative people thinking about satisfying their own goals, people who think that the rules apply for others but not for themselves. And we see them in Bratislava traffic every day. We see them in politics. Yes, they are living here with us. But it's a normal part of life. Difficult to manage though. Yes. The manipulations are difficult to manage.
So when you said that the people in the prisons, it often felt like they were predestined to that, do you think it's possible to fix them or fix their lives? Will you manage?
Difficult. No. Yes, no. There are cases where it can happen, but there needs to be huge internal motivation of that person, and the person must be aware that something's wrong. And many of these people think this is normal, this is their life, and this is themselves, and they are on the track, and everybody they know are on is on the same track. So they just don't think about it. They are proud, actually, getting out and in and out and in and back again. Yes, and then I had this one case when I thought, yes, the main factor is this father of this boy who was very cruel, beating him up all the time and stuff. Whilst this boy was in prison, his father died. So this boy felt this huge relief, like, wow, things are gonna be better, and finally the money I make will not be taken by my alcoholic father, but I can keep it for myself. And he was dreaming of buying himself a telly. And that was when I then changed my job to the headquarters, and then we got a call that in Trnava in prison there is a person who has killed himself and we should go and investigate, and we came there and it was this guy who killed himself because he wanted a cigarette, he had some let's say physical problems, some pain, so he just hung himself, and that was a very sad case. I thought things were gonna improve for him, they didn't. So you never know. Inspirational, positive.
I would maybe have one more question.
Yes, please do.
You said you were trying to do different like activities with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
To help them. Can you be specific? Like, what was it?
Yes, mainly in terms of group activities, because like the group dynamics is a factor itself. So the area where I have developed the biggest professional insight was actually these perpetrators of domestic violence, where there are highly structured, scientifically elaborated, long-term, like 1 year lasting programs, which really have results. That has impressed me when I first learned about it, that yes, there is a method that has results. So applying these, that was the number one thing. And I mean, yes, results, what can you consider to be a positive result? But there are improvements, and it is like that is when you feel successful, when you see how the people's mindset changes, because when they enter the program, usually it is like at the starting phase, everybody tries to pretend I'm fine, we are all fine, but then they learn about all the things that they have done, and they learn about each other. Then they get through the phase when they start to point to each other, point fingers, like, oh, you are the bad guy because like you have set your wife on fire, and you are the bad guy because you throw an axe at your wife. I did not even touch her. I was just psychologically manipulating her and violating her rights. So they always try to preserve their self-image, but then we kind of step by step shatter that self-image, make them admit that it is not correct, not right. Many times these people actually, they try to preserve their self-image because otherwise it would just fall apart, their personality would fall apart, so they try to think it's all okay. So we dismount it step by step, and then we try to start rebuilding, and it is like educating kids. Actually, they learn things and they have insights and they feel very positive about it. And not all of them can then also apply this transition in their real relationships, because in the prison environment it is safe in a way because they are not allowed to interact with their wives. Let's say the moment they get out, things can change slightly. But that is why we were then working also with the people who are kind of in and out of being close to being released and stuff. And that is why I feel so positive about, for example, this one couple who is still attending now individual sessions with me, this marriage counseling, where they have a track record that this guy has not been violent for now like almost 2 years, which is a success. Small one, I like it.
I've heard about one study, it was like in the US, where there was a non-government organization, maybe focused on prisoners, and you said that they are kind of predestined to end in a prison, and they were doing these type of group sessions with them, and they started asking people like they have prisoners on one side, and they said everybody whose mother was alcoholic moved to the left side, and like 90% of all the prisoners moved to the left side. And then they asked everybody whose father was beating his mother, then another 80% moved to the right side. So they were doing different like tests and started to treat the group this way, and they figure out like really there are similarities that all these people went through, and which ended up being them in prison, and why they somehow, let's say, deserved help rather than the society blame them like they are evil.
Yep.
And I think that like these type of therapies help them eventually realize that okay, I'm not really like the broken one, but maybe looking at all the others, I might be just unlucky, and then with some other help they were able to, eventually change. So I think
They've just been dealt cards which are not nice to start with. And yes, these are the things. Like you first think, wow, how could somebody do such a terrible, nasty thing? And then you dive deep and study about the family, the background, how life went on, education and stuff. And now suddenly it's like, okay, what else could we expect? Society has let somebody down, and this guy took revenge.
So that means that most of the criminals are predestined or
No,
pre-programmed?
other laws say that like there are this psychopaths who have well-paid jobs, but still are thinking about how to somehow cheat others and make money on them. For example, we had like clerics from some state offices who tried to make money illegal way. Well, no, they have not been dealt some wrong cards, but they have decided. I mean, that we can decide for ourselves. We always can.
And in prison, is there also some psychological help for people who are there? And if yes, then what's the goal?
To not make them suffer, because the goal is not to make these people suffer. They are just locked up, but they need to be treated as humans, as people. Everybody has access to psychological services, like prisoners.
They have some scheduled appointments, or they can come when they want?
They can request, like in your terminology, they raise a ticket, and then there's somebody who accepts them.
Do you have somebody who inspires you?
Inspires me. Well, yes, I could say like everybody inspires me. All the people I interact with inspire me a bit. Many IBMers have inspired me in the past when they have shared their stories, where apart from their professional life, they have their small businesses set up, they have their bright ideas, they're helping society in many ways, so this was very inspirational. But I mean, I personally look for inspiration inside, and I love to go running, and like all the difficult decisions I have made were when I was running somewhere alone through the woods here around. So that is when I meditate, contemplate and think, and that is when I come up with decisions which are difficult.
Do you have any favorite writer who you read and inspires you?
I wouldn't say so. No.
Are you still dreaming to be Norwegian famous?
No, I think I already am. My view of success has shifted somehow. Before I was trying like to reach the top somehow, and then I realized, well, I already have everything I want.
So you have it all.
I have my family. I feel very positive about that. We have made a huge decision to relocate from Dunajska Lužna back to Bratislava 2 years ago, which was fantastic. Which allows me to travel by car to by bike to any type of shared service that we provide services to. So I have it somehow leveled up. So I do corporate trainings. I do this individual counseling. I have a lot of free time. During summer, I take 2 months off and go to Scandinavia usually. So I mean, I'm not waiting until I get 40 now.
Are you capable to just turn off from the work? You know, you are speaking with one friend and you are looking at his body language and you are not okay, I will be laughing on you, you will cut your ways.
You know what? I was never doing that. I had people who do that. I had my fellow friends and students who studied psychology who do these kind of things. I have the feeling I need to punch them in the face when they start talking to me like that, like, oh, Robo, do I understand correctly that you have just said that? No, let's have another thing. So no, I think I'm not mixing. Maybe somewhere here in the back of my mind, in the back of my head, but I don't do that intentionally. I try not to do that.
So just try.
It is not a struggle, not a challenge for me. I think I still can do more.
Any more questions for topic? No? Okay. Thanks, Robert. Thank you for sharing
Thank
such
you
a
very
unique
much.
story.
Thank you.